Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first official Transform with Plants podcast. I am your host, Kerryn, the Plant Power Coach. I am a plant-based weight loss coach, but let me tell you what that actually means because it might not be what you're expecting. First of all, I am certified in whole food plant-based nutrition, which means I understand plant-based nutrition at a very deep level, how it interacts with our body, with our hormones, with our gut, with our cells, with our brain, how the power of calorie density can help you achieve a healthy body weight without needing to go hungry or starve yourself or count anything, how the right food can actually heal what medication sometimes can't, and that is definitely the foundation of everything that I do. But I'm also a certified holistic health coach and life coach as well. So I like to look at health beyond just food. I like to look at it in terms of the relationship that you have with your food, with your body, with your health. I look at habit change, behavioral change, and how do we actually help ourselves move forwards towards the goals that we want instead of sabotaging ourselves. And being a life coach, I also look at you deeper. I look beyond the surface. I look at your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotional states, your internal programming, your identity, how you see yourself, what you believe to be true about yourself, what you believe you're capable of. And that drives every single decision that you make. I'm also currently studying at the moment, which is very exciting, to become a certified medical intuitive practitioner, which means I'm developing the ability to work at an even deeper level with my clients, intuitively reading what comes through from their body, the information that their body is communicating to them or trying to communicate to them, and what the body actually truly needs in order to heal at the root layer. So that layer of intuitive work combined with everything else means that I'm not just looking at you as a set of dietary choices. I'm looking at you as a whole human being in body, mind, nervous system, or emotional states and spirit. Because while food is the fuel that we put in our body, just like, the fuel that we put into our car, and that makes our car run properly, there is more to the efficient running of our car than just the fuel that we choose to put in. There is the engine, the spark plugs, and all the other things about engines that I don't understand. There's all sorts of other things underneath that bonnet. There's the tires, the tread, the pressure. There's the oil and the water that we put in. So with you, your health, your weight, your results are more than just the food that you eat. You are a full human being with a subconscious mind and a nervous system that runs every single thing that you do. And what I've found with working with people in my coaching program, Transform with Plants, over the last 6.5 years or so, is that the food is sometimes the real problem, but usually there is a deeper layer. Many people coming to me for support know what to eat. They have been following all the experts like McDougall, like Greger, Esselstyn, Chef AJ, and many others in this space. What they know isn't the problem. It's putting what they know into action consistently so that they get the results that they want. That is often the real problem. And that's what this podcast is going to be about. So together in this podcast, we are going to go deep and we're going to help you where you are actually stuck in your health, in your weight, in your habits. But we're not going to talk necessarily about the science of food and calorie density and plate building so much because there is so much of that already out there. And I do cover that in my free weight loss guide and in my free masterclasses. And by the way, if you don't have my weight loss guide or haven't seen my masterclasses, the link is in the show notes. So download that guide and you'll be sent that. And then the masterclasses will follow on in subsequent emails. So stay on my list to receive all of that information. But what we're going to talk more about in this podcast is how to use your brain to succeed, how to shift your thinking so that your actions and then results become effortless. So once you understand your brain and how to drive it intentionally, the rest is then going to be easier. We're also going to talk about your nervous system or your emotional states, your stress levels, and how what you feel literally drives you towards your goals or away from them and why. And how stress is a physiological event that impacts not only your metabolism, your sleep, your energy levels, it also impacts your food choices. And we will talk about your identity, how you see yourself, who you see yourself as, and how that is one of the biggest drivers of your choices. We'll talk about your environment, and not just your food environment. We'll talk about your social environment, or how things like your social feed, your news that you're watching on the TV, how all of that impacts what you're thinking, how you're feeling, and then impacts your choices, and more. We'll also talk about relationships. Yes, relationships. The relationships that you have with your food, yourself, your body, the scale, the people around you, and how your relationships to other people can influence your behavior. Say if you're a people pleaser, if you have weak boundaries, if you're scared of being different or being seen. We'll talk about the relationship that you have with your childhood as well, and how your childhood experiences may be impacting the decisions that you're making today. So there is so much to this conversation that I think is worth bringing to you, because it's not something that I've heard about in any other podcast. But over the 6.5 years that I've been coaching clients, I have realized that our struggles with food are never really about the food. The struggles are with something deeper. And if we can shift that something deeper, then behavioral change becomes so much easier. So that's what this podcast is really going to be about. It's going to be about the full transformation. And in future episodes, I am also hoping to bring you some incredible guests, people who are doing extraordinary work in the plant-based world, in the health, the science of how the human body actually works in terms of interacting with our plant-based nutrition. Plus, I'll be interviewing some of my incredible clients and talking about the genuine struggles that they have been able to move through in our work together. And I want you to see from their experiences that I want you to hear yourself in their experiences and understand that if you are struggling, and if you can see somebody else having moved through that exact same struggle and come out the other end being successful, that there is hope for you too. And I thought about whether this first episode that I'm bringing to you today should be a big introduction to me, my story, and why I'm doing this work. And then I thought, no. I want you to hear something that is going to be genuinely helpful for you. And so that's why today's session is all about one of the biggest things that most people struggle with, and certainly that they come to me for. And that is why you might not be doing what you know you should be doing in order to achieve your goals, and why that's happening, and how to shift that, how to change that. So before we dive in though, if you are watching on YouTube or you're listening to this podcast, if you're not already part of my free Facebook community, plant-based health and weight loss support, I want you to come and join us now. The link is in the show notes. That's where you can come to these live podcast episodes. You can ask me questions and you can get support in real time. And within this community, there are more free guides, there's free resources, there's a ton of other trainings, there are recipes, real conversations happening as well. Again, the link is in the show notes, so come and say hi. All right, so let's get diving in. And by the way, anybody who is watching on Facebook, oh my goodness, I see lots of people here. If you have any questions as we are moving through this content, please feel free to drop them in and I'll answer as we go. All right, so here's the question I want to explore with you today. Why do you keep not doing the things that you know would change your health and your weight results? Maybe you've read the books, you've watched all the YouTube documentaries, you've followed all the experts in the right spaces. You know that eating more whole plant foods would transform your health, how you feel, your energy levels. You know that it will make it far easier for you to achieve a calorie deficit and lose weight without going hungry. You know that meal prepping in advance is going to make your whole week easier. You know that moving your body matters. You know that it matters for your metabolic health. You know that it matters for your longevity. And yet there is a gap. There is a gap between the knowing what to do, and the doing. And that gap, this is where most people blame themselves. They might call it laziness, or say they have a lack of willpower, or they're just not motivated enough. Or maybe they feel like maybe they don't want it badly enough. But I want to offer you a completely different explanation. One that I think is going to change how you see yourself and what is actually possible for you. And the way I see it is this. The reason that you're not doing what you know you should do has nothing to do with willpower or motivation. It has everything to do with how you are thinking about it. And there is a framework that I teach inside of my Transform with Plants program that I call the CTEAR model, or CTEAR. This is the model that I learned from Brooke Castillo of the Life Coach School. Hey, Brooke, if you're listening, you magically at some point happened to follow me. Now, Brooke calls it her CTFAR, but I like using the word emotions rather than just feelings. And this is where I trained as a life coach back in, I think it was about 2022. When I learned this model, it changed so much for me in how I saw myself. And it changed the way I think. It changed how much control I believed I had over my results. And now I've been able to not just take control of how I think, but I've also been able to take control of my emotional states and my actions and my results. And using this model, not just on myself, but on my clients, it has changed how I coach my clients as well. You see, I don't coach my clients just at the action level, i.e., just do this thing. I coach them at the thought and the feeling level, the thought or the emotion level. And when I help my clients think differently and feel differently, everything else changes. A shift in perspective, a shift in an emotional state directly shifts your actions. And when you shift your actions, your results obviously change as well. And once you can understand this, you will start to see yourself moving through this model everywhere. You'll be able to see other people moving through this model everywhere. You'll be able to see this in the foods that you're eating. You'll be able to see it in the foods that maybe you're not eating. You'll be able to see it in your behavior, what you are resisting doing or what you're doing that you know is not supporting you. You'll also be able to see it in the things that you are doing that are aligning with your goals. You'll be able to see it in maybe your exercise or everything that you do. You'll be able to see it in every area of your life. And it's going to change everything for you. And the CTEAR goes like this. First of all, the C stands for circumstance. Everything starts with a circumstance. Your circumstances are the facts of your life. They are everything that has happened in the past. They are your past results. They are the things that are external to you that you have no control over. They're the things that you can't change immediately. They just are. They're things like the weather, the world's events, other people and what other people do or say, how they behave. They are things like past results, like that number that you see on the scale today. These are all facts. They are things that could be proven in a court of law. All right, so they're not your beliefs, your perceptions, your stories. They're different. They are facts. There are things that can be proven in a court of law. And here's the kicker that most people don't actually understand about their circumstances. And their circumstances are completely neutral. Hear me out here. Right, you might think that the weather today is shit. It's overcast, it's rainy, it's cold. No, the weather, the fact it is raining, it is overcast, it is cold. It is neither good nor bad, it just is. It is neutral. You may think of the world's news events at the moment as being terrible. You may think of them as being amazing. They are neutral. What is happening is happening. It is neutral. It just is. You might think that something that someone said to you, whether that's a comment on social media or something that someone said on the TV or someone said to you in person, you may think that that was like, oh my God, that was terrible. They shouldn't have said that. But what they actually said, the words that came out of their mouths or the words that they typed, just were. They were neutral. Because what they said, what someone did, is just a fact. It's just what they said. It's just neutral. What's not neutral is your perception of what they said, your judgment of what they said, how you heard what they said, what you made their words mean. I'm taking it back to the weather and news events, for example. One person might look at a piece of news and think it was great news. Another person may be extremely disappointed. Each person sees exactly the same event and has a completely different perspective or judgment or perception about it. But the event itself is completely neutral. What happened, happened. It is neither good nor bad, right nor wrong. It just is. Same with the words that come out of other people's mouths or the actions that someone else does, or even the actions that you take. They're neither good nor bad, right nor wrong. They just are. And that leads me to, in the CTEAR model, the T, your thoughts. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your perceptions, the meaning that you're making, the sentences that roll around in your head, sometimes come out your mouth. It's your perceptions of your circumstances that labels something as positive or negative. The perceptions about whether something that someone said was good, bad, or ugly. The judgments about whether someone should have done that or not. The judgments that you have about what you ate or what you didn't eat, the donut or the potato. The meaning that you make from the number on the scale. All of that is just sentences rolling through your brain. Your brain is always generating a thought about your circumstances. And it's your brain that perceives something as positive or negative or even neutral. The circumstance itself is always neutral, is always factual. But your brain layers in perceptions, beliefs, stories about it. And how do we know this? Well, as I said, like two people can witness exactly the same thing and come away with a completely different perception or judgment of that same thing. And that is based on what we call our model of the world. How your brain has been shaped from all of the experiences over your lifetime of experiences. What you were taught to believe from your parents before you actually had the ability to decide for yourself. It's been shaped by the things that have happened to you over your life. Your brain will immediately generate a thought about your circumstances. And here's what most people don't actually realize too, is that thoughts are not truths. Thoughts are interpretations, opinions. They're not the truth. A story that your brain is telling is based on your history, your experiences, your conditioning. It feels like the truth a lot of the time. It feels very automatic, but it's just because your brain has perhaps been thinking that way for a very long time. But just because you thought it doesn't mean it's true. Your brain is a storyteller. It's a meaning maker. And it's just trying to make sense of the world and your place in it. And it's trying to keep you safe within this world. And let me give you an example. We'll just backstep for a moment. When I said two people can have a very different perception of exactly the same thing, I'm going to tell you about a client of mine from a few years ago, Lisa. Lisa, if you happen to be watching at any stage, hello, Lisa G. Lisa had come to me and she wanted to lose 15 pounds in 12 weeks. And I remember looking at her progress tracker after week 4, and we had one of our one-on-one catch-ups. And Lisa had stood on the scale and she had looked at that number and she'd written it in her tracker. And as I picked up her tracker, I was excited for her. I was looking, oh my God, that's amazing. She's nailing it. She was at 7 pounds down after 4 weeks. So she was almost halfway to her goal and only a third of the way there. I'm like, she's going to nail it. She's probably going to get to 20 pounds in 12 weeks. And then she turned up on the call and she was disappointed. She was cranky, disappointed with herself. I said, have you seen your results? She goes, yeah. I said, oh yeah, tell me about that. She said, oh, it's not very good. I should have done more. And I thought, wow, isn't that amazing? Her brain had perceived that number as not good enough, as she was failing. And it had made her feel terrible. And the reason that she told herself that story had nothing to do with that number. Because my perception of that number was she's nailing it. She's actually ahead of the curve. She's actually ahead of where ideally she would normally be if she was to lose 15 pounds in 12 weeks. Her perception of failure was nothing to do with that number. It was to do with everything from her conditioning in her past and the relationship that she actually had with her mother growing up. A mother who made her feel like she couldn't succeed, that she was going to fail at everything. And it was interesting because we then had a conversation about why she chose to think that way when she looked at the number. And she said, oh, I guess as it came from how I've grown up. I've always looked at myself and thought, I can't succeed. I can't do that. That's not for me. And she looked back over her life and realized how much that had driven a lot of her behavior in life, how she'd stopped herself from going for promotions and really stopped herself from doing the things that she really wanted to do and achieve because she had this underlying belief that I'm going to fail. And that's what her brain was telling her in this moment. You are failing. You are not succeeding. This number is not good enough. And in that moment, I was able to change her perception of that number. And I told her, you do realize that you are halfway to your goal almost in a third of the time. And just shifting that perception was enough for her. She suddenly was able to see that belief that I'm failing wasn't even true. It was just something that was being filtered through a lifetime of being led to believe that she was always going to fail. So your thoughts are not facts. Your thoughts are perceptions, judgments. And here is also what every single thought does. It generates chemicals. It sends energetic signals down from the brain through to the nervous system, down through your vagus nerve, all out to your nervous system. And those chemicals tell your body whether it is safe or in danger. And that energy in motion flowing through your body is called emotion. Emotion are the thoughts. Sorry, start that again. The thoughts that you create. Sorry, start that again too. The thoughts you have create your emotional state. Not the circumstances, as everyone believes, but the thought that you have about your circumstances. The emotion is always generated by the thought, always, because the brain has to have that thought that then sends the message down through the nervous system to the body to tell the body whether it is safe or whether it is in danger. This isn't just my belief. It is literally physiology. Now, you can imagine with my client Lisa, when she was telling herself she was failing, how that made her feel. It made her feel negative, frustrated, angry, sad. All the emotions she didn't want to feel, uncomfortable emotions. Not that these emotions are bad. I do not label emotions good or bad. Emotions just are. Again, emotions just are. We label them as good or bad. They are neither good nor bad. They are emotions that we want to feel, and they are emotions that we don't like to feel. And we'll talk a little bit more about feelings a little bit later and why they're important to understand. Why is it truly important that we understand how we feel? Now, emotions are 50-50, right? Life is 50-50. We are always going to experience a balance of 50% positive emotion and 50% negative emotion. And I think in future I'm going to do a separate podcast on our emotional states and dive a little bit deeper into this. But just for your, I guess, top line information today, I like to think of emotions just as neutral, and they are 50% positive or emotions that we like to feel, and 50% negative or emotions that we don't like to feel, that are uncomfortable for us to feel. Just achieving our goals doesn't mean we're going to be any happier. It just means that we'll have different sets of emotions to deal with when we get there. So, bringing it back to your emotional states, and it is your thoughts that create the chemicals that flow through your body, that activate your nervous system, and tell your body whether it is safe or in danger, i.e. positive emotion or comfortable emotion, emotions that we like to feel, tell our body that we are safe. Emotions that we don't like to feel are triggering our nervous systems to say, hey, something in our world isn't right and we need to fix it. So, as Lisa was feeling uncomfortable emotions with this experience, not because of the number on the scale, but because of what she was telling herself, that she was failing. And as soon as I was able to show her that she wasn't failing, she was in fact succeeding and likely to smash her goal, she changed her emotional state immediately. She became more motivated, more excited, more driven. She stopped telling herself, I can't, and she realized, oh, hang on, I am. Changing her emotional state then changed the action. So this is what leads us to the next step, which is A. Those energy signals, that emotion, that energy and motion flowing through your body, is designed to make you act. Action is what either keeps you safe, keeps you fed, keeps you alive, keeps you pursuing your goals and your dreams, or has you hiding in the corner under the doona, afraid of the world and how you feel. The emotion drives action, or inaction, or a reaction. And when you feel good, when you're feeling positive emotion, emotions like maybe excitement or curiosity, when you feel capable or driven or determined or joyful or playful, there's a whole plethora of emotions that we love to feel. We generally take more positive action towards our goals. But when we feel negative emotion or uncomfortable emotion when it comes to our goals, say feeling overwhelmed or scared or resistant or deprived, we generally don't take action towards our goals. We take action that is designed to keep us safe, not action that moves us towards our goals. So your action is always driven by either how you feel or by how you think you will feel once you've taken that action. It is not driven by logic, it is driven by emotion. We take action based on how our nervous system feels, not based on our goals. And so as you're thinking about that thing that you need to do or should do or want to do to achieve your goals, if you're telling yourself a story like it's going to be hard, or I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm going to fail, your nervous system is going to feel, say, scared or anxious or overwhelmed or exhausted. You are then not going to move towards that action. This is when you sit in inaction. You don't take action towards your goals. You don't do that thing. This is when your nervous system is pulling you back because it's saying something about doing that isn't right. It doesn't feel right. I don't feel like doing that thing. It's like your nervous system is going to a slight state of flight, freeze, sometimes fawn mode. So if you are, say, afraid that if you take that action in some way, if you take that action towards your goals, that maybe you might get hurt, or somebody might bully you or tease you or judge you, we can sometimes go into that fawn state. And again, it's a version of inaction. We take action that goes against our goals. We don't take the action that we know will drive us towards our goals. That happens for some of my clients when they might be eating out in public and say their friends or their family don't know that they are working on a goal, that they've changed their diet, and they're worried about other people and what they're going to say. If you're thinking about the action that you need to take, and if it is leaving you feeling like, if you're telling yourself, this is going to be really super hard, or I don't like doing that thing, you might feel frustrated or annoyed or just very resistant. You are going to resist taking that action. You're not going to move towards it because it doesn't feel good. You think that you're going to feel worse by taking that action. But when you feel positively about not just your goal, not just the outcome, but the action that will get you to the goal, when you're thinking positive thoughts or aligned thoughts or intentional thoughts about the action that you need to take, you feel better about taking that action. And then you actually move towards taking that action. It makes taking that action so much easier. And when you take that action, of course, then you are more likely to achieve the goal. When your nervous system feels safe to take that action, you will take that action. That action has no resistance. You're not trying to move through resistance. And then, of course, the last letter in the CTEAR model is R, is results. Every action that you take produces a result, always. And the fascinating thing is that the result will always, always, always reflect your original thinking, reflect your original belief, perception, judgment, which is why our stories are so sticky, and we really need to understand what we're thinking, because they generate results that confirm themselves over and over and over. So let's go back to Lisa for a moment, just to, really flesh out this particular story. Her thoughts about that number. So let's look at that number of 7 pounds. Her thought about it, her belief about it, her perception about it was, I'm failing. I'm never going to succeed. Nothing I do is ever good enough. That left her feeling frustrated. Feeling frustrated would usually drive her to eat a pizza. She would normally have ordered a pizza. Thankfully, because she was working with me, she didn't. But normally it would have driven her to go, stuff it, and order a pizza. And the result of eating a pizza would have meant, I don't know how many calories it might be in a full pizza, 1,200, maybe more, 1,500. Wow, a big whack of calories like that, that's going to stop her from achieving future results, which then would prove that original belief correct, that she's not going to succeed, right? That she is failing, because that number then doesn't move in future. And that only happened because she looked at that number on the scale and perceived it as a failure instead of actually perceiving it as a massive success. So in the work that we did together, we shifted that perception. And instead of seeing that number as a failure, she saw it as a success, which changed how she felt. Emotionally, she felt more motivated, more excited, more driven, more determined. And instead of ordering a pizza, well, she got on and made her food prep for the week. Healthy, whole food, plant-based, kept herself in a calorie deficit. And not only did she achieve her 15-pound goal, she smashed it and lost 20 pounds in 3 months. She then went on to get a tattoo that said she could, so she did, to remind herself always to check her thinking, and that she will produce results that directly come from her thinking. If she says she can, she will. Instead of saying she can't, so she won't. So I want to stop and talk about our motivations for a moment. This is a little bit of brain science for you. This is understanding that CTEAR model is one thing, but understanding why it works the way that it does is very, very important. Why the negative thought wins so often. It requires understanding something called your motivational triad. Let me know in the comments if you have heard of the motivational triad. So there are 3 things, put my fingers up here in front of the camera, 3 things that your brain is wired to do. It's wired to seek pleasure, it's wired to avoid pain, and it's wired to do both with the minimal amount of effort possible. Now, this is not a character flaw in any way. This is evolutionary genius, because this is what, for most of human history, has kept our species alive. In fact, it doesn't just keep our human species alive, it keeps every single species, living species on the planet alive. This is around seeking food, seeking shelter, avoiding the predator, and conserving energy, because our ancestors lived in a world of energy shortage, not the energy abundance that we have today. If they were to spend their whole lives burning too much energy, they would not have survived. So they had to find food, they had to find shelter, they had to stay away from the predator, all by using as little effort as possible. The problem now is that we are running around in this modern world with this very, very ancient software in our brain. And when your brain interprets something as painful today, even if that something is objectively really good for you, it is going to move you away from it. For example, if you know that you should get to the gym and work on your strength training because it's so important for your cardiometabolic health. It's going to be great for your longevity, it's great for gut health, it's great for brain health, helps you burn more fuel at rest, helps you regulate your blood glucose. If you know all these things logically, if you are thinking about going to the gym as being something that will take time out of your day, you don't have time for it. If you think about it as painful, if you think about it as embarrassing, if you think you're going to walk into that gym and there's going to be mirrors everywhere and you're going to have to look at yourself and everybody's going to be looking at you, and you have a negative experience of that thought, guess what? You are not going to feel like doing it. You're going to feel resistant. And you're going to tell yourself stories that will keep yourself away. You won't go to the gym, even though you know it's really good for you. You're thinking about it as negative, so your emotional state is negative. And so your brain perceives it as a threat, quote unquote, air quotes here. And so it will move you away from it. And it won't be a conscious thought, it'll be below the level of your consciousness. Or when you think about going plant-based, or when you might think about doing your food prep, your brain will have thoughts about that. It might have thoughts like, it's going to be so hard. I'm going to have to give up everything I love, give up my favorite foods. I'm going to miss out. or I don't know what I'm doing. This is going to take so much time and effort. I'm probably going to fail anyway. Those sorts of feelings, they create those negative emotions like overwhelm, resistance, deprivation, fear, dread. And from those feelings, your brain says, no, don't do it. We don't take the action. Or you might start and then you'll stop. Or you might do it half-heartedly while waiting to quit, because your brain is doing exactly what it's designed to do, and it's moving you away from what it has decided is painful, what it perceives as danger, what it perceives as painful, physically or emotionally. You haven't failed. Your brain has succeeded, and it's succeeded at protecting you from what it thought was a threat. So the question is, how do we change what the brain thinks is a threat? Right? We don't just change the action, we go back to the thought. And here's what is extraordinary about the CTEAR model. The circumstance doesn't change. It doesn't have to change. The food is still the food, the effort is still the effort, the gym is still the gym, the Sunday meal prep is still the Sunday meal prep. But when you change your thoughts about them, everything else downstream changes. And what if instead of, this is going to be so hard, the thought is, oh, this is exciting, this is interesting, I'm learning something new here, I'm getting healthier, I'm getting stronger. What if instead of, I'm going to have to give up all of my favorite foods, the thought could be, I'm choosing this because I love myself and my body enough to give myself the best quality food available. And what if instead of, I'm going to fail, or I'll probably fail anyway, the thought is, every choice I make is a step in the right direction. And what if I just keep taking one step at a time and keep stepping? Same exact circumstance, but completely different thoughts, different emotions, and therefore different actions. And with a different action is a different result, which equals a completely different outcome, completely different life. This is not just about positive thinking. I want to be clear about that, because we'll come back and talk about thoughts and how to change your thinking in another episode. But I want to just say that, positive thinking as a concept doesn't necessarily just work. I'm not asking you to pretend that things are going to be amazing when your brain is currently thinking that they're going to be hard and suckful and painful. I'm just asking you to notice the story that you're currently telling yourself about what is hard, and how that story may not be the only story available, and how the story that you choose will actually determine the action that you take, and that the action will determine the result that you get. And you can choose a different story. You can choose one that just feels slightly better. Your thoughts are not facts. Your perceptions, your opinions, they're not facts. They are your choices. You choose them. And like all choices, they can be made differently. So let me make this really practical now for you, because I work with a lot of people who are moving towards a more whole foods, plant-based way of eating. And this is the, pardon me, the CTEAR model is running every single day in how they approach it. So one person might look at this way of eating and think, this is going to be hard. I can't have the foods I love. This is so restrictive and miserable, and I have to do it forever, and I don't really know what I'm doing. And as a result, that person will feel deprived, overwhelmed, anxious, resentful. The action will be inaction. Maybe not meal prepping, maybe making a half-assed attempt, but going back to old patterns, Uber Eats, eating out, processed foods, soon, very quickly. And then the result being, see, I can't do it. This is too hard. That result confirms the thought. It is hard. It is boring. And that person can't do it because they never actually apply it properly. But somebody else might look at exactly the same way of eating and think, oh my God, this makes so much sense. This is a completely new way of eating that I haven't even explored yet, and I'm going to experiment. Some things are going to be amazing, some things won't, but I'm going to learn. I'm going to get better at this every single week. And as a result of thinking that, they're going to feel curious and interested and excited maybe. And as a result of feeling that way, they'll find recipes, they'll buy recipe books, they're going to find recipes that they want to try. They will do some meal prep excitedly. They will know that maybe one meal will go in the bin, but they laugh it off and they try again. And the result of doing that is that they get better every week because they're learning from that experimentation. So exactly the same food, exactly the same learning curve, exactly the same, occasional disappointing meal, but now it's a completely different experience because of the thoughts that they started with. So I'm not saying that, the second person is without challenges on the journey. Absolutely, there'll be challenges, but it's how you meet those challenges and meeting them from a state that allows you to keep moving forwards is important. Whereas the first person is meeting them from a state that confirms all of the fears and all of the beliefs, and then that keeps them stuck. So the question that I want you to sit with today is this. What are you currently thinking about that thing that you know that you should do? Not what you wish you were thinking, but what you are actually thinking. Because that thought is what is creating your emotional state. And the emotional state is determining whether you actually take that action or avoid it. So if you're not sure what you're thinking about that thing, why don't you just get out a notepad and a pen and just stream of consciousness. Write everything down. As you think about doing that thing, write everything down that your brain is offering you. Let it all flow out. And you can start to find the thoughts that are not aligning, the thoughts that are actually making you feel resistant and stopping you from taking action. I'll tell you about another story now. I worked with somebody a little while ago, and her pattern was one that I see so often. It's become one of the most important things I know about this work. She came to me knowing everything she needed to know about what to eat to achieve her weight loss goals. She knew about calorie density. She'd read all the books. She followed the experts. She'd done starch solution, all that sort of stuff. She understood the science. And her knowledge, her nutritional knowledge, was really well informed. But she just wasn't doing it. Or not consistently anyway. Not in a way that was producing the results that she wanted. And when we sat together, I asked her to tell me what she was thinking about her eating. What she thought about this way of eating. And the honest thing that started to come through her mouth was that I don't have the time to do this. I don't have the time to stand in the kitchen and do all this freaking meal prep. I don't really know how to cook like this. And, if I'm really honest, I don't even really like it. It's bland and it's boring. And you know what? My family doesn't like it. So what's the point? I'm probably going to give up anyway. And every single thought was generating a very negative emotional experience for her. There was overwhelm, there was self-doubt, there was hopelessness. And from hopelessness, from those sorts of emotions, you do not meal prep. You don't try new recipes. You don't actually ask for support. You don't sign up to get, to a program to get yourself to get the support that you need. You stay exactly where you are. You keep telling yourself the same story over and over and over. So I didn't just tell her what to do to make food tastier. I addressed her thinking about her food. And we looked at her thoughts, not to dismiss the thoughts and not to pretend that this wasn't a real experience for her, but just to ask, is that thought actually helping you right now, or is it Is it keeping you stuck, or is it moving you towards your goal? And slowly, one thought at a time, she was able to start choosing differently. Not perfectly, not all at once, but she was able to start choosing differently. And she wasn't just flipping from this is going to suck to this is going to be amazing. She chose a thought intentionally more neutral. And she started telling herself, okay, I'm learning a new skill here. It's like learning a new musical instrument or a new language. There's always, I'm going to suck in the beginning, and that's okay. It's going to be terrible, and that's okay. I'm going to learn. There are ways that I can make this easier on myself. And you know what? If my family don't like it, that's okay. I can batch prep my own food, and then I can batch prep theirs separately so that I'm not feeling like I have to make 2 meals every single night. There are ways I can make it easy, and everyone can have what they want. Or they can make their own. Big enough and ugly enough now, they can make their own. And once she started thinking differently, she started feeling better. And once she started feeling better, even just neutrally, she didn't have to feel wildly excited about this. She just needed to feel more neutral. Then the actions followed. Her nervous system was no longer sensing threat. It was no longer sensing, oh, this doesn't feel right and you shouldn't do this. It was sensing, oh, this feels neutral, or this feels good to do. We should do this. And obviously, with the action changing, then the results changed. Not because she suddenly had more time, or her family suddenly decided that they liked this way of eating, or she suddenly liked this way of eating, or that she magically knew more. It was because she changed her thinking, and it was her thinking that changed how she felt enough that she could act differently and move towards her goals. And that is the work. It's not glamorous. It doesn't make for amazing like before and after photos. That is the work underneath the work. That is the thing that makes the before and after photos possible. So, what does this mean for you? If you're not doing something that you know will help you move forwards, I want you to check in with what you are thinking and how you are feeling first. And are you telling yourself a negative story about what it is that you need to do? Are you telling yourself something like you don't have time, or you don't know what you're doing, or you're afraid you'll fail, or you're afraid that people will laugh at you? Check to see what those thoughts are that you are having about the thing that you are wanting to do. And once you locate the unhelpful thinking, I want you to feel what emotions those thoughts are driving. How are those thoughts making you feel emotionally? Are they making you feel resistant or scared or overwhelmed or tight? What negative emotion is that thought creating? So I want you to notice the pain or the tension or the tightness and what your brain is driving you away from. And I want you to see if you can shift that thinking to something more neutral or slightly more positive towards the thing that you know that you want to do. And I tell you, I'm not a unicorn who never gets caught in this trap myself. This whole CTEAR model goes on for me as well. Think about this podcast. Like, I've been wanting to start this official podcast for, forever, right? I've been telling myself for so long, I must do this. I really want to start a podcast. But I kept telling myself, oh my God, I just don't have time right now. I don't really know what I'm doing. I've never done this before. I don't have all the stuff. I don't have all the equipment. I keep telling myself things like, oh, every man and his dog has a podcast these days. Who's going to listen to mine? Right? And thoughts like that kept me from just starting, from taking action for years. So I decided enough is enough. I'm going to start shifting my thinking. And my thinking started to say, I just need to take it one step at a time. I don't need to know exactly what I'm doing before I get going. I already know how to record a Facebook Live. I've been doing this for 6 years or more. It's almost 7 years. So I know how to do that part. AI can guide me through the rest. Claude can help me with the next steps and help me work out what microphone and what stand to buy. It can guide me through the actual step-by-step process of uploading this and getting this going. Right? Somebody else can guide me. I don't have to understand it all in here first. I'm already doing part of it. And you know what? I don't actually need to launch with a massive bang. I don't need to try and get to the number one spot in my category in a year. I'm not trying to be Mel Robbins. Although, who knows? Maybe Mel Robbins will find me one day. Hi, Mel. Love your work. I just need to start. I just need to take that first step. And then my subconscious mind will learn how it goes by taking action. My subconscious mind is just scared at the moment. It's just scared because it doesn't know what it's doing. And even my conscious mind is like, oh, I'm a little overwhelmed. But my conscious mind is the one that can learn. And then by taking action, effective action, my subconscious mind will learn too. Our subconscious mind learns when we actually take what we know and we start putting it into action. You know, if I reflect back on my early journey, getting into coaching 6.5 years ago, I've been looking back at some of the old, original brand artwork and Facebook banners and, YouTube banners and, even some of my first Facebook Lives, and oh my God, they were terrible. But I just had to keep taking action. And I told myself back then, if I just kept taking action, even if it wasn't perfect, I would get better. I would learn as I went. And I have. I've got better and better and better. And I just needed to apply that exact same thinking to this podcast too. So that's what I'm choosing to do here. And you know what? One day in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, something like that, I'll probably look back on this first episode and cringe. And that's okay, right? This is literally just about me starting the journey. And so, same with you. Same with you. How can you shift your thinking enough so that you can just start taking that first step? It's shifting your thinking that's going to drive the action. So, what do you need to think differently? How can you go away and locate that thinking that is stopping you from taking the action? Look at how it's making you feel. Feel that negativity, that negative resistance. Understand what it is. Know that your brain is designed to move you away from what feels painful or hard. It's telling your nervous system this isn't safe, this doesn't feel right, we shouldn't do it. And you need to change your thinking so that you're having more neutral or positive thinking about it. And then your nervous system will feel safe to take that action. And then go do the thing. Once you've changed your thinking, you've changed your feeling, go do the thinking. Allow that to be the first step. Sometimes some of you are just trying to take too big of a first step. Just take one step. My first step here is literally just to record this damn thing. I'll figure out the rest. I've done my artwork. There's a few things I haven't figured out yet. It doesn't matter. I just need to take it one step at a time. Allow the first step to be the first step. Your brain will learn that it's actually safe and okay to take that step. You'll learn what works and what doesn't. And then you can refine, repeat, and you'll learn more. Hey, Jenny, thanks for tuning in too. Well, that is our first episode. This has been the start of a much bigger conversation. And I want to give you a sense of where we're going because I think it'll help you understand why this podcast exists and why I believe it's different to a whole lot of what's out there. So yes, we'll be talking about our brain, how our habits form, why some of them are so hard to break and what it really takes to build new ones to stick. We will talk about our thoughts and our beliefs and how what we think drives our action. We will talk about our stress and our emotions, not in a soft, vague way, but in a physiological, grounded way. We will talk about how our emotional states are chemical events that directly drive our behavior. We'll talk about how stress isn't just a feeling, it's a physiological state that changes what you do, changes what you reach for in the kitchen, and how it has a huge impact on things like your health, your cells, your organs, your metabolism. We will talk about how learning to process stress and emotions rather than eat or suppress your emotions or react to them might be one of the most single powerful things that you can do for your health and for your weight results. How your past can affect your brain and how it perceives the world, whether it creates a safe world, whether it's creating stress or drama or emotions or fear, and how to let that go so it doesn't just keep driving you in the wrong direction. We're going to be talking about the science behind why plant-based eating works, but not just for weight, for every cell in your body. We will geek out a little bit on this, but I'm not going to be spending too much time on food. I really do want to get some of the experts in here to teach us about that, because they're the ones with, with all the science, all the deeper science knowledge on that than I have. And we're going to be talking a lot about identity, who you believe you are, how that shapes every single choice that you make, often without your conscious awareness of it. And we're going to go deeper here. And we're going to go into those things that most of those health podcasts don't touch on. It's the relationship patterns, it's the emotional habits, it's the stories we carry about ourselves and our bodies that have nothing to do with our food, but drive everything we do, drive our choices, and with that, drive our results. So I want this podcast to be one that makes you feel genuinely seen, not just informed, but seen. Because I've worked with so many people now to know that being seen, like really fully seen in the full complexity of who you are and why you do what you do, is often the thing that makes change possible. And that's what I'm here to do. And that's what this is. So if something really landed for you today, if you heard yourself in any of those thoughts or any of those client stories that I told you, I want to invite you to a deeper conversation. I want to invite you to a free discovery call. It's just us, no pitch, no pressure. We'll talk about where you're at right now, where you want to be, and what might be getting in the way of you achieving that result. And then we can talk about whether working inside Transform with Plants makes sense for you. So a lot of people actually come to me thinking that they have a food problem and they leave genuinely realizing that they have either a thinking problem or an emotional problem or a feeling of, genuinely hopeful for the first time when they finish up, because these are problems that are some of our most solvable that we have. So there is a link to book with me in the show notes as well. Come and have a chat. We'll discover what's going on for you. And if you're also not inside of my free Facebook community, Plant-Based Health and Weight Loss Support, come and join us. That's in the show notes too. This is where I go live. This is where you can join in these live podcasts. I also run free workshops and share resources, recipes, all sorts of things. This is where the community lives. You don't have to do this alone. So come and join us. And that is it for today, folks. I want to thank you for being here for this very first episode. It means so much more than you know, and I'm going to leave you with this. The gap between knowing and doing is never about what you know. It's about how you think and what you think. And how you think is something that you can change. So I will see you in the next episode, folks. Take care of yourself.